You're listening to Supervision with a Vision, where we discuss all things supervision. I'm your host, Sarah, professional counselor, marriage and family therapist, play therapist, eating disorder specialist, and cookie lover, with my co-host, Heather, marriage and family therapist, certified Together in Texas counselor, a Texas transplant from California, and outdoor adventurer. Hi, welcome to Supervision with a Vision. Today, Heather and I are talking about the No Surprises Act. It's a federally enforced act that went into effect January 1 of 2022, and it protects people against surprise medical bills. And Heather, there are lots of parts to this act and lots of strong opinions.
Yes.
One of the important parts of this act is about balanced billing.
Right.
So let's try and define balanced billing for our listeners.
All right. Help me walk through the mud a little bit. If our fee is $100 to come for an hour of counseling,
Okay.
and the insurance company is going to cover $65, and our client has a copay of $5 to come.
Okay, so $70 is the insurance rate. So
Right.
you're $65, the insurance company will pay. The copay will be $5 from the
Right.
client, so that will total your $70 that the insurance company says that you're allowed to get paid.
Right. The part that comes into play is if you asked your client to pay the, great math, $30 extra to get it up to what your
100
hour would be.
Right. So what's not allowed, according to the No Surprises Act, is for someone to expect your client to pay the remaining balance of what the insurance company, their negotiated rate with you, doesn't cover.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
So we cannot bill any additional amount that we feel like we're owed, but the insurance company does not agree that
Right.
we're owed. Okay.
Right.
So let's talk about that. How does that affect us? How does it affect supervisees? How does it affect clients? What do we think about this?
So I think it's interesting because it had to go into place for a reason. This was actually needed because there were some things happening. It actually is a bigger picture because not all insurance companies have the same type of plan or the same type of situation. Some of them don't have copays. Some of them have copays that are, you can have one umbrella insurance company with many different plans, and they might have a $5 copay, and another client with a similar insurance, big name company, may have a $15 copay. And so there is a lot of steps and processes if you just look at it from just an administration like billing side.
Well, sure. So, I mean, each one of us, when we choose our insurance plan, we look, even through our employer, we're probably given like 2 or 3 options.
Right.
And one option allows for you to pay more per month and then your copay is less.
Correct.
And then the other extreme is you pay very little per month, but your copay is higher. And then there's usually one that's like in the
Somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Like, this looks like it'll all work out.
So you're saying that if you have Blue Cross, it does not mean that everyone who in the whole world that has Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance pays the same copay or deductible. That's
Right.
true.
Right.
Are you saying then that causes a problem for billing for people who are doing billing?
I think that's what has caused so many missteps for people that are doing billing. I think it gets lost in translation sometimes. I think mistakes get made or assumptions get made. Personally, in our family, we've had one get filed incorrectly for a medical procedure because...
Well, I mean, on my end, I'm on lots of insurance panels. So you go through the credentialing process and you give them all of your information, the insurance company.
Right.
And they check you out and make sure you actually are who you say you are.
Right.
And then they send you back this really long document. And it's a contract between you and the insurance company.
Yes.
And every one of those that I have ever signed has said this.
Yeah, it's been very clear.
Yeah.
Right. Like very clear.
So part of me thinks, okay, so we're making kind of a big fuss over nothing. Everyone who's on an insurance
Has
plan
already done this.
has already agreed to this.
Right.
We all agreed to this a long time ago when we
Right.
agreed to take insurance.
So I think a lot of the mistakes that were made along the way, and this is probably in offices that maybe the provider got on the insurance and did all the reading, and maybe they're big enough that they have like a front desk person that was just doing billing and not managed well.
So you're saying it's mismanaged in the office?
Maybe. Obviously, it's a problem if it was big enough
I think,
to put on it.
well, I think the difference is that, this is an idea that I've been working with for a long time now, that I'm not allowed to bill them
Right.
whatever extra amount that I think I feel
Right.
like I should get from them.
I think the difference is that that was a contract and an agreement between me and another company.
Yeah.
And now this is federally enforced.
Right.
So before, Blue Cross didn't have a whole lot. They couldn't do a lot to me if I started doing this other than just say,
don't do that.
We're not working with you anymore.
Right.
That's what it says in the contracts. Is that if you start balance billing people, then we're going to say you can't work with Blue Cross anymore.
Right.
So I think the difference is that another layer of security, maybe, that if you start doing this, not only is Blue Cross going to dump you and you guys can't be friends anymore, but the federal government is going to say, no.
Right. That was not okay. Now
that was illegal. Now you'd have to pay someone back or there's a consequence.
Right. I think this also brings up a little bit into play that as providers, when we choose to be part of a network, to be in network with different insurance companies, they all have different rates of what we're going to get.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's another piece that like you and I both know, because we've been on multiple different panels. Some it's going to be 65 and some it's going to be 85. And you make that choice when you decide to be in a contract with them.
Yeah. That's kind of one of our other points. We were going to try and think of how does this affect supervisees?
Right.
So we've talked very clearly about how it affects you and I as clinicians. Then how does it affect the client? Surely we've talked about that they don't owe us more money than their insurance company tells them they do. How does it affect supervisees, balance billing? I think in the state of Texas, it doesn't very much.
No.
There are one, maybe two exceptions to a situation where a supervisee can bill insurance.
I was going to say, I can't even come up in my own personal experience with the time that would have crossed paths.
In the last couple of years, I've heard of the magical unicorn, that there are a couple of insurance panels that if you are the supervisor and your supervisee that works for you applies to be on that panel, that they will accept it if you are on that panel.
Okay.
So that's like the only, or a supervisee that works at an agency.
Right.
And in which case that's different too, because if you work for an agency, the agency itself is paneled on the insurance company, not each individual person.
Right.
So let's say you work at Methodist Hospital.
Right.
And Methodist Hospital is a Blue Cross provider. Bob Jones, the counselor who works there, is not by himself a Blue Cross provider, but because he works at the hospital, he is. So then those supervisees don't really have to worry about it, partly because somebody else is doing all that billing, but because they're not specifically on that panel. So in a lot of ways, this balance billing part of the No Surprises Act doesn't usually directly affect supervisees.
Right. There would be very small, strange circumstances when it would.
Yeah. Okay. So the next important part of the No Surprises Act that is new to some people and has lots of opinions going back and forth is the good faith estimate. What is a good faith estimate?
It is your best guess in how much counseling will cost your client over a year's time.
So this is how I've been explaining it to my supervisees and my clients, that I think it's kind of like when you take your car to the shop.
Right.
And when you pull up and you say, it's making this noise, or I want you to, do this service or whatever, car dealership or a car shop is required to give you an estimate.
Correct.
And they tell you when they give you that estimate that things could change. They don't know.
Might take longer. Right.
Once they open the hood, we don't know exactly. But our best guess right now is that this is what it's going to require. I mean, who in their right mind would just drop off their car and leave their keys with somebody without getting...
Bye. See you later.
Right. Some kind of estimate or guess or something. That's kind of how I look at this, that if you're going to entrust you or your kid or your family or something to me as a counselor, that I'm going to give you my best estimate of what this looks like right now.
Right. I have always had it in my intake paperwork.
Oh.
Like not an actual estimate as far as like numbers go.
But so you didn't call it a good faith estimate, but you described this
scenario.
Idea.
Right. And I always discuss it verbally with clients in the first couple of sessions, because a lot of times, especially if you're working with like teenagers or younger kids, parents want to know like, how long do we think this is going to take? They have this like idea in their head. And I don't think it's always financial. Sometimes it's just an idea of like, are we in counseling for the next 5 years, or is it just like 5 visits?
What do you tell them exactly?
I tell them that it depends on, a lot of it depends on what the diagnostic, like what I'm getting from the client. A lot of times I have parents tell me their kid has ADHD and they're not at all. They're anxious and depressed it's a different scenario. But I say that, it can vary depending on what we find out. And it also depends a lot on the client and how willing they are to work and how willing they are to try. I also tie this into, at the beginning, I like to see my clients on a weekly basis. So you develop rapport and kind of develop some relationship. But as time goes on, we separate that out, maybe every other week and maybe a couple times a month. So
I think I do some of this, but it's certainly not completely focused on money.
Right.
And I don't know that I have spelled it out as clearly as I will moving forward due to the No Surprises Act. But what I've said is I like to meet with people once a week. I like to keep a standing appointment so that we
always know Tuesday at 5.
Right. I don't get confused. You don't get confused. This is how much each session will cost. That's kind of it so far.
Right.
That's what I've done in the past. So what are you doing to adjust to make sure that you have completely covered yourself for this good faith estimate?
Right. So the system I use for payment already has an addendum attached and already has something to fill out. So I use Ivy Pay. And they already have something that you fill out for each person.
So our technology is making it easier for us because this is a federally enforced act. Any technology that we use to keep records or bill, they're probably
already
trying to gear up and make sure that they're a part of this. Right. Okay.
And they did put a clause in there that I actually really liked, and I'll probably use parts of it when I update my paperwork just to make sure it's clearly stated that we cannot guarantee a result. This is our best guess at this time. And often, I don't know about you, but often I'm not right when I meet someone for the first time. And I think in my head, well, this could be 12 sessions. Other things come up.
Yeah, I don't tell people that. I don't tell them how many sessions. So I said what I have been saying. I think, so what I'm adding to my information and how I'm explaining this to clients, I'm adding literally 2 sentences to my new client paperwork. So when they look at all of the office policies about late fee, showing up late or canceling or things like that, don't come to my office sick, please.
Right.
Things like that. I'm also adding 2 sentences that say, if sessions cost this much and we plan right now that we will see each other 4 times in a month, this is how much it will cost per month. And so if there are 50 weeks in the year that I'm going to be in the office, then this is how much it would cost for the year. And that's it.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
Right.
What do you think of that?
That's perfect. That is very much how the addendum that's been included in my payment system. It pretty much says that it has, as the provider side of it, you're putting in your national identifier number, provider number. You're putting in your tax ID number. You're putting in the diagnostic code for each patient. And you're putting in what your expected is weekly, biweekly. Like you have options to drop down from. And then it kind of calculates that number for you and puts it in a little paragraph that says, this is what we can expect. And leaving it there, it does have you, because it has you ask if it's weekly or not. I'm putting weekly in because that's how all of my clients
feel like kind of a standard.
Right. And I've tried it out with a couple of clients and asked them at the beginning, like, please bring that in. I'd love to see what it looks like on paper because from our end, we don't get to see it.
Yeah.
And I've seen a couple of them and it really is spelled out very clearly. And it does have a whole phrase in there about like, we cannot guarantee what comes out in mental health services.
Sure. Okay. So that's what we understand good faith estimate to mean.
Right.
How does this affect clients, supervisees?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, quick question for you. Are you someone who wants to be fit, healthy, and happy? And what if I told you you could get your dream body by simply just listening to a podcast? I'm Josh.
And I'm KG, and we're the hosts of the Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast.
Listen, we get it. Fitness isn't easy. Carbs, no carbs.
Just stop, okay? It doesn't have to be that complicated. And that's why we made this podcast. We get straight to the facts so you can become your best you.
So the way to check us out is click the link in the show notes or search Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast on any of the major podcast platforms. We'll see you soon.
I think it affects lots of clients in different ways. I mean, some of my clients are coming in for therapy because they have anxiety around money or financial issues, right? Like they have stressed out about it, or maybe financial issues is just another problem going on in their life. But I think if you look at that number and go, therapy is going to cost me $6,000 a year, that can be pretty off-putting.
I think I feel about it like I would about dropping my car off somewhere.
Yeah, so you need it fixed, then you need it fixed. If you need a car to rent, you need a car to rent.
Well, I mean, if you're thinking about the anxiety that your clients might feel, I feel anxiety if I drop off my car and I have no idea what's going to happen. So I think maybe we have to figure out how to deliver the message.
Right. I think it'll be finessed, right? Like this will become more the norm.
Right.
We're already doing pieces of it, and this will just become more the norm. And it won't be from the client side, or actually the supervisee side, it won't be as like big and scary, like oversight, big and
right.
You know.
So we said that there are lots of strong opinions. This is one that I've heard, and a lot of these strong opinions that I've run into have been in Facebook world,
Right?
And so I even like
stop listening to that. Yeah,
stop listening to it because people were upset and confused and panicky. One of the opinions or one of the points of discussion around good faith estimate was that this group's understanding was that if you were a cash business, if you're not working with insurance, that part of that disclosure statement, this is our estimate, also includes that if you chose to use your insurance, you could pay less somewhere else. And so then that caused clinicians and supervisees who, also clinicians, to feel like, oh no, if I broadcast that,
if I like announce that,
if I really announce it, then all of my clients are going to leave.
Oh,
what do you think of that?
I mean, I have clients that choose to see me even though I'm not on their insurance. So I feel like I don't take insurance anymore. I took insurance for a while and I don't take insurance anymore. And I actually had never considered that until you just said it. And I hadn't heard the argument actually.
Yeah. So I've heard lots of clinicians say if we make that really well known, then won't all of those people go look for someone who can work with their insurance?
I feel like, the conversation that happens when someone calls for counseling services and I say to them, they say, okay, do you take Cigna? And I say, oh, I no longer take Cigna. I'm not taking insurance anymore. My rate is, and then I give them the breakdown and I tell them, if you want to find a provider in network, go to behavioral health on your insurance website. And sometimes they do. And they say, thank you so much for that information. And sometimes they say, actually, I've already looked on my website. I feel very comfortable because my friend saw you 3 years ago or whatever.
Right,
and so they seem very comfortable with this. I don't know that it's a huge problem, but I can see why some clinicians, especially if you're not not established,
right,
that would be kind of scary.
Yeah. So I guess that then leads into our clients affected. Do you think, so we do maybe and maybe not think that clients get this disclosure about their good faith estimate and that insurance is an option if they would like to use it just somewhere else.
Right.
That maybe that affects their decision. Maybe it doesn't.
Right. And I think every situation is different. I mean, I think of my own kids. If I'm going to take my kids somewhere and they're going to go for therapy and they really like their therapist, and then it doesn't really matter to me because they're, you know what I mean? Like if they're connected and they're engaged, that's great.
Right. I feel like similar to you, I think what you're saying is certainly not discouraging people from being informed consumers, but encouraging them. That I think that's what this creates, is that it might occur to somebody, oh, I never thought of that. I guess I could look up my insurance and see if there's a provider. But how often is it going to happen that they look that list up and don't find anybody that they want to go see, or everyone on that list is full and doesn't have availability? Then maybe they end up right back where they started.
Right. And I think because we're under mental health, it looks very different. If someone has a broken arm and they need to see an orthopedic surgeon to fix their broken arm, most orthopedic surgeons are going to have a very similar approach. There might be 3 or 4 approaches to fix a broken arm, but they're very like, this is a mechanical thing and this is how we fix this broken arm. With therapy, depending on what the client comes in with as presentation, depending on what approach you take, because we all have such different theoretical views or different ways that we approach a problem, it might be really great that you find somebody on your insurance that does exactly that, like fits perfectly.
I think, though, a lot of people that are calling for new appointments don't know that.
Right. It's possible.
They haven't experienced a lot of therapy for themselves, and so they don't know the value of finding someone who's a personality fit.
Yeah.
Or finding someone who they appreciate their style. I don't know that they know that, right? Not
all the time. Yeah.
Okay, so good faith estimate, we feel like that certainly does impact everybody in the system. Supervisors, supervisees, clients.
Right.
Okay. Our last point, the importance of continuity of care and provider directories. I actually did not know that this was part of the No Surprises Act until we read this.
Right, until we read it.
Yeah. So the provider directories, so we've been talking about being paneled by insurance companies. When you're paneled by an insurance company, they keep a list, a directory. We referenced that a second ago, that someone might look up providers on their insurance
Right.
website.
Right.
So the insurance companies keep directories of current information of all the people that are providers that can work with this insurance company. And so the No Surprises Act says that we are required to keep all of that information up to date.
Mm-hmm. Which I think we were already required to do.
I don't think so.
So,
I think it's like that agreement with the insurance
that's right,
company.
like your own personal.
Right. So Blue Cross told me I should do that.
Right. But it was never, it was never
the federal
home.
government
Right.
wasn't enforcing it. And I've never met a little pencil pusher Blue Cross worker who came and told
hey.
Right. You know, actually, there are 2 insurance panels that I'm on that I'm glad that they are very pleasant on the phone. But every single quarter, they call and confirm my information with me.
Well, good for them.
It's sometimes exhausting.
Right.
But they're on top of it.
I will tell you that I've had an experience almost the opposite of that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I stopped taking insurance, well, and I guess there's another piece of this we need to get to in a minute,
Yeah.
but when I stopped taking insurance, you have to submit a letter and it's
Right.
very clear in your contract what you need to state and how and all this kind of stuff. It's a process. It's not like, oh, I'm done now. Like
Right.
there's a process to it. So during that process, I kept getting phone calls for like, oh, you're on my insurance. Actually, I'm not, or I'm about to not be, like
Mm-hmm.
kind of explaining it to people. And then it was 6 months later and I was still getting phone calls and I was still on their directory. And I was like, hello.
Well, I mean, so let's go back and explain that.
Right.
Every insurance panel has a provider directory that when you submit an update, they tell you it's going to take 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
And every insurance company has a different process
Right.
for doing that.
Right.
Just like we just described, that
Mhm.
one company's calling me every 3 months
Right.
and literally talking to me on the
I
phone.
need to
Right.
talk to you. Yeah.
And that you submitted paperwork and it seemed like it just
Right. Fell
you
through
know,
the cracks
right.
somewhere. Yeah.
So it's not a perfect system
Right.
from the insurance company's part either, that they have a difficult time keeping things up to date.
Mhm.
And so even when we make our best effort to keep
Right.
things up to date, it isn't always.
Right.
So the No Surprises Act is saying that we as clinicians hold the responsibility
Mm-hmm.
for keeping that up. You also started to describe, and this is another piece of this, if it's our responsibility to keep that information up to date, then it's also our responsibility to, if we are no longer taking that insurance, we have to write a formal letter and tell the insurance company, I'm no longer
Right.
taking this panel. And so we can't just say, you know what it makes me think of? Michael Scott in The Office when he declares bankruptcy.
Yes.
You can't just declare,
I declare.
Yeah. So you actually have to do something
Right.
and you have to make sure it happens. So it does, I think that's a change. It puts a lot of the responsibility on us as clinicians
Mhm.
to confirm and make sure that that process is followed through on.
Right.
And then this last part is continuity of care and the provider directories. So this piece of the No Surprises Act, Heather, tell me if this sounds like how you understand
Okay.
it, that if you are working with, if you are on Blue Cross Blue Shield panel and you have a client who has Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance,
Right.
and you decide, I'm not going to take Blue Cross after January 1st, then you send your formal letter to Blue Cross. You also tell your client, and for good continuity of care, we as clinicians are now required
Mm-hmm.
to provide the same service at the same rate to this client for 90 days past the point of when you said you no longer take Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Correct.
How do all of those things, and we talked a little bit about this, keeping up the provider directory mess is
Mm-hmm. That's a job
crazy.
no one should
Yeah,
do.
it's
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah.
And so how do these things affect us as clinicians and then supervisees and clients, maintaining the provider directory and providing continuity of care in this?
Right. And so
Right.
you have to make that decision of if you are going to stop taking a certain insurance, you need to make sure you're looking at your bottom line. So that client is now going to come and pay their rate that they were always paying. So if they were paying $15, that's what they're going to pay you.
Oh, that's not the way I understand it.
Okay.
I understood like our $100 scenario and the Blue Cross Blue Shield rate was, we said 70.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that the client then is responsible for 70.
Maybe. That might be right.
We have to go back
Yeah.
and look at
We'll have to look at that and clarify.
it. Mhm.
But I think the purpose is so the client's not paying more than they're used to paying. Like it has to be the same.
I mean, I think
It's their amount, the insurance amount.
Mhm.
Okay. So yes, on that part, but also in that to look at then you are required to also find, like you would do a termination of services, right? Like providing 3 other resources for that client. The tricky part is you now need to refer them back to that directory for their insurance, more than likely. I'll be honest, when I left taking insurance, I lost 2 clients, one of which came back after 6 months.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much it really affects our...
Well, I think it affects, I mean, I said it a couple of times and emphasized the word already, responsibility.
Right.
That's how I see
huge
that this affects us.
Right.
The responsibility is ours to keep the information up to date. That's a huge time suck. It's our responsibility to communicate with the insurance company. It's our responsibility to make sure that the client then has another referral source if they need one. And that way it feels like a big deal for us.
A bigger deal. I think that it makes a lot of us, especially in private practice, go, oh, maybe I do want an office like secretary. Maybe I do want a front desk manager. Maybe that's something they could be doing, not me.
I mean, maybe I think all of this really, like anything related to billing or business,
right?
That is not an obvious match for a counselor's personality characteristics.
No, it's just not.
I think if you have a counselor that does these things well, it's a different piece of their personality that they know how to.
Right. I think when No Surprises Act got announced or got like, I was like, no, what? Like normally I'm very up to date on things that are coming up, but I was like, no, wait, that doesn't make sense. Like just on the first blast of like, hey, this is what we have to do now.
Yeah.
And I was like, there would be no way possible for me to guess how many sessions a client needs. I don't know. Like I literally don't know. I've done this for a very long time and I could not tell you on the first meeting whether you need 6.
But you still feel the same way?
No, I think I've like adjusted that like low. But I was very surprised by the No Surprises Act.
Yeah. So provider directories ends up being our responsibility and ensuring this continuity of care. How does it affect supervisees?
I think it's another step for them to learn. Like, right? Like it's a launching point.
So they're not affected by provider directories.
No.
They're not in insurance panels. So then the continuity of care doesn't directly affect them either. Because the continuity
not from the federal oversight.
Right. But that's what we're talking about,
yeah.
right? So, I mean, the continuity of care, at least from this scope or this perspective, we're talking about provider directories, working with insurance companies, no longer working with insurance companies, then it kind of doesn't affect a supervisee.
Not so much, no.
What about, and we talked for a second about this, do you think it affects clients? Provider directories, continuity of care?
I mean, I think it's probably in there as this, it's probably better for clients. It's some kind of safety mechanism to make sure they don't fall through the cracks or quit therapy abruptly. Or, I mean, I think it is a positive side on the clients.
So I also get, and I was going to say this too when we were talking about provider directories and the pain that it is to keep up with them. There's a directory, they have 3 different phone numbers, 4 different addresses.
Oh, right. Yeah.
2 different, and and I will call and try to explain that to them and they'll take one off.
Right.
And then they took the wrong one off. And then 90 days later, it goes into effect. And it's just like this constant chasing this thing. So I do, though, get clients who will call or potential clients who will call and say, are you at this address 30 minutes across town?
Right.
Like, no,
not
I haven't
for a
been
long
there
time.
for a really long time. Well, so-and-so referred me because they thought you were, down the street. No, I'm not down the street. So I know that's a frustration, but I don't think it's too hugely frustrating to a potential client. I always give them I go, no, but I know so-and-so.
Right.
So-and-so.
I know someone in South Lake. Let me get that
we're
for
still
you.
over there. So I always provide that. I do think the continuity of care for someone who's in that specific situation would be a huge benefit.
Right.
If they could go from, my new counselor who I was paying this much is now going to charge $100 an hour and I could pay less than that for a little bit.
Right.
So an added responsibility to us, but at least in this one piece, we can see that could be a huge benefit to some of our clients. So do we agree that this No Surprises Act, there are lots of pieces. It can feel really complicated. And so lots of people could have really strong opinions.
Right.
And you said at one point, you think that at some point we're going to get used to this and this is just going to be like old hat. We're going to know how to do it. It won't feel so stressful.
Right. It's just a change.
Yeah.
We don't like change. People don't like change.
Yeah. So I hope it becomes less stressful.
Right. I think it will.
Okay. Well, thanks today for listening to Supervision with a Vision.
You've been listening to Supervision with a Vision. Head on over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Therapy Academy to join the conversation and get show notes. We'll be back next week with more Supervision with a Vision.